I'll tell you how I feel about the U.S. involvement with Israel and Iran war and Trump seemingly leading us into it. 90% of Trump's base, as measured by the Charlie Kirk poll on Twitter, is against him on this issue. So I'll tell you how I feel, and then I'm going to show you what I think is the most important message for all of us to see about this issue. And I promise you, it's not what you think it is, but it is the most important issue because I think all of us are falling for something right now. No matter where you stand on, we should back Israel or we shouldn't. Now, here's how I feel. I would be a fan of the U.S. not getting involved in another war. There's a certain order to the food chain in nature. The strongest shall survive. If there's a squirrel that goes up to a wolf, in this case, the U.S. is the wolf and Israel is the squirrel. And the squirrel says to the wolf, "You have to help me. The coyote is trying to get me." The wolf isn't going to run to protect the squirrel. The wolf says, "Well, you're a squirrel, and some of you survive and some of you don't because there's something more powerful that can eat you up. That's nature's way." I think there's a certain case to be made of if you're writing checks that your butt can't cash, eventually you're a squirrel facing a coyote. And if you expect the wolf to come to your rescue, that might not be an appropriate expectation. If you're writing checks that only a wolf can cash, the squirrel probably shouldn't be writing those checks. A wolf could be a predator to the coyote. So the squirrel, if he goes up and pokes the coyote, irritates it, for the squirrel to expect the wolf to come to its defense, the wolf might choose not to. So the squirrel's business is the squirrel's business. Now I know in the topic of geopolitics, there's more complexity than that. Well, the coyote has a nuclear bomb and it might devastate, should we stop that? And maybe it could come to us. Yeah, I know there's more complexities here. But generally speaking, especially if you look at the past regime change, kind of forever wars we've gotten in, it's not a winning record. And in fact, I don't know that there's any wins on the record. That's why, as it stands right now, I would say, yeah, personally, I'm not for the U.S. involvement. And I will say, I'm not for a revolt against President Trump. He did a thing I don't like, therefore screw him forever. If that happens, I think we're falling for something, ladies and gentlemen. And also, I'll take a step back and say, I've got blind spots. What are my blind spots? I don't know. I am blind to my blind spots. I do realize me nor you are in the position of the elected leader, President of the United States, who was elected to be in this position to make these decisions, to get involved or not to. So I realize it's his right to make the decisions as the President of the United States. And due to my blind spots, I'll also have an open mind to this. He knows things I don't. He might know things, and I don't know that he does. I'm just saying I have to have an open mind and consider it. He might know things about whatever Iran would do, where if I knew those same things, I would say, oh yeah, we have to get involved with this war. It is in America's best interest. What are those things? I don't know. But I do think it's possible that President Trump could know things that I don't, that if I did know, I would be making the same decision that he's making, which really appears to be we're getting involved in this war. While I'll continue to have my stance, yeah, I'm not for the U.S. getting involved in this war. I'll have that stance until and unless new information comes along that changes my mind. I'm open to that if it's worthy of changing my mind. So that will be where my discernment has me leaning. And I'll also have a benefit of the doubt of he might know something that I don't. And even if he doesn't, regardless, I'm not going to throw the Trump baby out with the bathwater. I don't like the bathwater of another war, but I'm not going to throw the baby out. I'm not going to be tricked into that. That's division, and it's sowing the seeds of chaos, my friends. If I've liked 95% of the decisions Trump's made, and I don't like this decision, even though it's a big decision, I'll still respect. I really support a lot of what this guy's done. And I like his character. I truly think he cares, even though I don't agree with this decision. Ladies and gentlemen, if we didn't know any better, you might start thinking you can disagree with someone and still love them and even still support them, even though you don't support this individualized, nuanced decision. I mentioned a second ago, if we throw the Trump baby out with the bathwater, we are falling for division and sowing the seeds of chaos. Who wants that done? Maybe the deep state, maybe the globalists. So I want to show you what I think is the most important piece of information out on Twitter right now. I think it is so thoughtful, and I think if it's really read and digested, it can save so many of us from falling for the deception. Have you ever wondered what the legendary Chuck Norris is up to? Like, is he just at home having ChatGPT ask him questions? Well, I recently saw a video he made and I was surprised. Chuck Norris is in his 80s and he's still working out, kicking butt, taking names, staying active. What's even more surprising is he's stronger, he can work out longer, and still have plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. How'd you like to have Chuck Norris as your grandfather? But anyway, he did all this by making one change, and he says he still feels like he's in his 50s. And his wife even started doing this one thing, and she's never felt better. She feels 10 years younger, she's leaner, and she has all-day energy. And luckily, Chuck made a special video explaining this one thing he does, which you can watch by going to chuckdefense.com/JP. This video will change how you look at health and fitness. Once again, you can watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/JP or click the link below in the description. You won't believe how simple it is. And just a reminder, the legendary Chuck Norris is 84 years old, but has more energy than most men half his age. He discovered that he could make dramatic changes to his health by focusing on just 3 things that typically sabotage people's health as they age. And you can watch his method by clicking on the link in the description box below or go to chuckdefense.com/JP. Now back to the program. The right divides against the right. We revolt against Trump. Maybe the American empire crumbles because of that, but I think we can be saved by it. When I saw this post by Mickey Willis yesterday, I texted him and said, this is the most important thing on Twitter right now. It's not what are the exact nuances going on with Iran and Israel. It's not what did Trump say last. It's not what did Tucker Carlson say. It's this is the most important message on Twitter. And it's so damn important, I want to take you through it real quick. Mickey Willis, he's the director of the Plandemic film series, a man whose heart's in the right place, and this man sees deeply. He doesn't fall for the noise. He doesn't fall for the distractions. Therefore, he is an amazing leader in helping facilitate other people and not falling for the distractions. Here's what Mickey Willis says. I predict within the next 3 months, America may be subjected to a major false flag operation, a calculated act of deception designed to shift blame and manipulate public perception. Historically, false flags have been used to justify wars, hello Israel and Iran, expand government power, and rally public support through fear and confusion. One of the most well-documented examples is the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which led directly to U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. False flag! On August 4th, 1964, the USS Maddox was reportedly attacked by North Vietnamese torpedo boats in the Gulf of Tonkin. Based on this claim, Congress swiftly passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, authorizing the president to take all necessary measures in Vietnam. Those measures were taken. But years later, the truth emerged. There was no attack. Declassified documents from the National Security Agency revealed that U.S. officials had manipulated intelligence to fabricate the events. By the way, false flags can either be fabricated events or they can be events. Some would say 9/11 was a false flag. There's also a specific false flag with the Iran-Israel conflict that may be an event rather than a fabricated event. More on that in a second. That manufactured crisis launched a war that cost over 58,000 American lives and killed over 3 million Vietnamese. Today, all signs point to the staging of another crisis, one designed to justify U.S. military intervention and usher in more war. Not just justify U.S. military intervention, but also, and maybe a public demand for Iraq WMDs. Was that a false flag? Of course not. That's a conspiracy theory. But there are no WMDs. Never were. Not a false flag, just good information that wasn't true. Deliberately fed to us. Okay. Live footage of the event will play on loop over every major news network. Your social media feeds will overflow with horrifying, heartbreaking images. Eventually, the emotional weight will wear down resistance. A traumatized public, desperate for justice, will be swept into the rising drumbeat of war. I stand with the latest thing. Memes will saturate timelines. Profile pictures will be swapped for foreign flags. Hashtags will virtue signal allegiance to a cause most barely understand. This script is so predictable that it's hard to believe people still fall for it, but they do, and they will. But what if this time we got ahead of it? What if millions of Americans began speaking out before the narrative was set in stone? What if this warning reached the public before the next manufactured crisis unfolded? It's worth a shot, isn't it? Let's send a clear message to the war hawks. We, the people, will not be fooled again. We are done sacrificing innocent lives for their greed. When we say no more war, we mean it. No more war. The vast majority of Americans are finally waking up to the truth about these endless conflicts. They aren't keeping us safe. They're putting us all in danger. They've made the United States a target. We are now teetering on the edge of a global conflict, a war unlike anything we've ever seen. Every time we cheer for a war over there, we bring the fight closer to right here at home. This administration ran on a promise. No more killing. It's time to hold them to it. No more excuses, no more silence. For better or worse, President Trump is highly active on social media. He watches the public conversation. So what happens if millions of Americans flood the internet with this message or their own call for peace? Let's find out. Stand for all life, stand for your family, stand for our future. So whether you are like Mickey Willis and myself and you're not for this war, even if you're for this war, that is still an ultra profound message, my friends. By the way, false flags always look real. This just in, speaking of false flags, just so you know, the USS Nimitz has been deployed to the Middle East. The aircraft carrier is 50 years old and set to be retired next year. That's amazing. What's better than a fabricated event like the Gulf of Tonkin? Well, they never attacked the ship. What's better than that is actually attacking the ship. So there goes the ship. It's going to be retired next year. We don't really need it, do we? Cool. So it's going to go over there and definitely get attacked by Iran. Now we should get involved, shouldn't we? Lindsey Graham says yes. Everybody's saying yes. Let's go to war. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing is as it seems. Deception abounds. You can write that in stone, especially with what's going on now. Don't fall for it.